Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rano, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at the NM-116. This is a Western Alliance tank destroyer in Era 1 of the Cold War game mode. It's a premium tank that was buffed back on February the 15th of this year in some of the tank's reforged changes that were happening. And they seem to have stopped for a while, but hopefully they get going with that again soon. But this tank was given a pretty substantial buff back then, and it's an extremely powerful tank destroyer. It's got a 90mm gun with a great DPM, fantastic gun handling. It's a very mobile, sneaky tank destroyer, fairly low profile, and it's a very powerful premium tank that can make you a lot of silver indeed. So we're going to jump in a minute and have a look at the NM-116 compared to the T100, which you could get in the current season, as well as comparing it to the Charioteer and the SU-122-50 foil, which are comparable in both their hit points and in terms of their steel concealment, and also in terms of their DPM. So they're very good tanks to compare to the NM-116. And we'll see how the NM-116 fares. But first we're going to have a look and see what changed back on February the 15th of this year. So the reverse speed was improved from 17.7 kilometers an hour to 20.9 kilometers an hour. The moving concealment factor was improved. The steel concealment factor was improved. The dispersion whilst moving or rotating your turret was improved. The view range was improved. The accuracy was improved, and also the reload. And we'll have a look at the statistics of the NM-116 now for you. So this is my spreadsheet. If you haven't seen one of these before, basically the green is the best statistic, red's the worst, and orange is somewhere in between. I'm going to quickly run down the statistics of the NM-116 for you in one go, and then we'll compare some sort of important points of this tank compared to the other tanks and see how it stacks up. So straight off the bat you'll see that it has 1900 hit points, which is very good for an Era 1 tank destroyer, and with the buffed amount to the view range, it now has 505 meters view range, which is joint best in class with the T100. In terms of its mobility, you'll see here that the engine power is quite low, but bear in mind this is a very small, lightweight tank destroyer, and in fact your power to weight ratio is actually very nice. So with a 400 horsepower engine, you get a 21.5 power to weight ratio, which is best in class in this comparison. You can go 61.2 kilometers an hour forwards, 20.9 kilometers an hour in reverse. Your hull traverse is very nice at 40 degrees a second, and your turret traverse is 36 degrees a second, so just 4 degrees a second less than your hull. And with this mobility and the concealment factor that this tank has, you can play this as a kind of hybrid light tank, tank destroyer kind of role, and that's how I like to play this tank. So now we get onto the gun of the NM-116. It has a 90mm gun that deals 280 alpha damage on its standard and its premium rounds, and 370 alpha damage on its HE rounds. The standard rounds are APF SDS, and the premium rounds are heat rounds. The shell velocity on the standard rounds is very nice at 1275 meters a second. That's very good for leading targets and mid to long ranges, but bear in mind that that penetration will drop off over distance, and that's where those heat rounds come in, because they don't lose penetration over distance. The heat rounds have a shell velocity of 950 meters a second, which is relatively slow, but it's only 50 meters a second, just shy of that 1000 meters a second mark that I like to have on pretty much any tank that I'm firing at mid to long ranges. But you can get used to that, and it's not too bad at all. And the shell velocity does drop down by further 200 meters a second to 750 meters a second on the HE rounds. But I'd highly recommend just carrying mainly APF SDS rounds and maybe some heat if you found yourself bouncing at those mid to long ranges. And in terms of the penetration, you get 262 on your standard rounds, which is more than enough when you get into some sneaky flanking positions, and you can jump that up to 320 millimeters of penetration should you choose to fire those heat rounds. And if you do want to carry a few HE rounds, then it's 45 millimeters of penetration, but you're going to find it very hard to penetrate targets unless you are firing at lightly armored tank destroyers or those light tanks that are scurrying about. And then we get on finally to the gun handling and the DPM, and it's all green here, so very good news for the NM-116. It has the joint best aim time with the Charioteer at 1.9 seconds. It has an accuracy of 0.31, which is best in class, a DPM of 2,584, which is joint best in class, basically with the T100, which means that you reload in 6.5 seconds for 280 alpha damage. You carry 61 rounds of ammunition, so you shouldn't run out of ammunition at all. You have a very nice gun depression of 10 degrees, meaning that it's very useful on many ridgelines, and 15 degrees of elevation, meaning that you shouldn't be caught out in many scenarios. So now we're going to compare the NM-116 to the T100, the Charioteer, and the SU-122-54. We're going to go over the main points. I won't go over every single thing, but in terms of the hit points, the NM-116 is best in class. It's 50 more than the T100 at 1900 hit points. Best in class view range with the T100. Again, much better than the Charioteer or the SU-122-54. Mobility wise, it has best in class power to weight and top speed. The only thing it does suffer from is slightly less reverse speed than the Charioteer, but only by about 4 kilometers an hour. It has best in class whole traverse, as you can see here, as it does with the SU-122-54 that has the same 40 degrees a second, but bear in mind this is a non-turreted tank destroyer, so you do have that ability to catch up with people that are circling you in the NM-116 much easier than in the SU-122-54. And in the turret traverse, 36 degrees a second, you can jump that up, as you'll see here with the updated statistics of my commander and equipment setup, which I'll discuss with you in just a second. So great news in terms of the mobility, and it's much better than its competitors in my opinion. And then we get on to the gun. The shell velocity is sort of somewhere in between on the standard, with the T100 and the Charioteer's rounds being a lot faster, and also the Charioteer fires a premium APDS, which is much faster than the NM-116's heat ammunition, but bear in mind that would lose penetration over distance. And one thing to note about the Charioteer is that it does carry lovely HESH rounds that have high penetration and 480 alpha damage. The NM-116 has the lowest caliber gun out of this comparison at 19mm, much less than the SU-122-54's 122mm, and both the SU-122-54 and T100 do have that 440 alpha damage, but you do have the very nice DPM on the NM-116. If you get into some funky flanking positions, some sneaky positions, you should be able to put your gun to work and deal a good amount of damage. You just have to keep your gun singing in the game. And now we get on to the gun handling, and like I said when we were going over the statistics of this tank, it's best in class in everything. Just 3 damage less per minute than the T100, but basically the same as the T100, which has a phenomenal DPM. And the Charioteer and the SU-122-54 aren't too far behind, but it does have a very nice DPM indeed. So all good news for the NM-116. It's a very competitive tank destroyer that has a fantastic concealment rating. It's very sneaky and a lot of fun to play. So what equipment and commander setup do I run on the NM-116? Well, in terms of my equipment, I run advanced concealment, advanced loader and traction system. And on my commander, I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot, and Green Thumb, which gives me a view range of 526 meters, and it also gives me an absolutely fantastic still concealment rating, which I'll just check for you now, as I seem to have mislaid the bit of information. It's 122 meters, so you are an incredibly stealthy tank destroyer that can get into some funky positions and do some scouting for your team as well. And with my commander and equipment setup, I now have a top forward speed of 67.32, a top reverse speed of 22.99, and my whole traverse is gone up to 44 degrees a second, and my turret traverse has gone up to 41.3 degrees a second. So mobility has improved even more, and meaning it's much more mobile, and you really are playing that kind of hybrid light tank tank destroyer role. And then we're going to look at the gun handling and how it's improved that, and the DPM. My commander and equipment setup have improved my aim time to 1.82 seconds, my accuracy to 0.26, my DPM shot up to 3,329, which is absolutely brilliant for Era 1, and that means that I reload for that 280 alpha damage on this 90mm in 5.05 seconds. So you can keep that gun singing, you can keep people tracked if they don't have a great commander or equipment setup, and yeah, you can deal a lot of damage and make a lot of silver in this absolutely fantastic tank. So feel free to screenshot this and use it for your records, or I could post it up for people to download if that's a good thing. Let me know in the comments. But that's it for talking about the statistics of the NM-116. We're going to head over now and look at the gameplays. So you're joining me here on Kaunas in the NM-116, and you're going to see me use the mobility of this tank early doors to get into an advantageous position in the northern flank of this map. I'm going to try and use my view range and my concealment at the start of this battle to maybe get a little bit of assistance and play that kind of hybrid light tank tank destroyer role that I was banging on about whilst I was talking about the stats of this tank. And then I'm going to set myself up in a bush. I'm not going to be too far away from the battle. I'm going to still try and keep my view range in the game. I'm going to try and stay hidden when I fire, unless something's YOLOing like those FV101s do in Era 1 of the Cold War game mode. But hey, that's just one of those things, and when he's gone I'm just going to re-stealth, maybe go to a different position, use one of these ridge lines. You've got 10 degrees of gun depression that I can use and easily use on these ridge lines. They're nice and low profile, so I should be a hard target to hit, and I've got some foliage in front of me and some hard cover, and this is a good location to start off with. I know there's going to be tanks that are spotted towards the sort of center of the map, and especially that hill directly in front of me where all of the tank destroyers like to hide at the start of the game, and maybe even some sort of medium tanks like use that position. Tanks that have good gun depression can go hold down. It's a very good position to start off with, and it's kind of a direct counter for my position. So you do have to be wary. If I was in a medium tank, I'd probably go further to my right, but where I am now I feel comfortable because I do have, as you can see, that enhanced smoke screen that I've just popped to keep me hidden from tanks that are rushing me, like this FV107, and then we're just going to try and re-stealth whenever we get lit up, and then we're going to try and move to a different position. But that position was getting a little bit hot for me just then. I was getting lit up a little bit too frequently, so I'm going to use the ability to try and escape here, try and escape fire from all of the tanks in the north and towards the eastern flank, and then we're going to come towards the centre. This is where I would have probably started off if I was a medium tank that didn't have good concealment. And then we're going to come in and try and help our platoon mate out here, who is getting circled by those pesky light tanks. We managed to track that FE107, and then we're going to use our lightweight chassis to ram an even lighter tank in that light tank, and we scare that light tank off and manage to keep our friend in the game. And we've already picked up 2,186 damage. This tank racks up damage very quickly with that fantastic DPM, and if you choose to use a similar commander and equipment setup to me, you should be getting up to a fairly decent level indeed. And you can see that this tank does fly around the map. The traverses are fantastic. That enhanced smoke screen will really help you when you are trying to stay hidden. It can get you out of a jam, and it also improves your concealment passively as well, so I highly recommend you take that. And I'm trying to fire here whenever tanks are in line of foliage, so I'm not going to be spotted. I got a little bit too further forward there, but we managed to get a nice shot into the engine deck of that T95E3, set him on fire, and we are just racking up the damage. You can see here that not a lot of tanks are spotting me unless I go too far forward. If you stay back behind these bushes, behind the foliages, you should be golden with your concealment. You can see the ratio from my view range and my concealment circle on the mini-map in the bottom right hand corner. Make sure you use that to judge and approximate when you think you're going to be spotted, when you think that you can move closer, that kind of thing. And it's just all about learning the concealment of this tank, learning the view range, learning when you're getting lit up, learning when you're not, and adjusting your position with your mobility, and just farming from a distance, unspotted, using that great DPM, the great gun handling, and the decent penetration of this tank. And you'll see in these replays why I don't really carry that many heat rounds at all, because you just don't really need it at this in Era 1 with this penetration, unless I was always firing at the turrets of a tank like the one that's in front of me there, that American medium. Then it's not really going to worry me. I'm just going to try and use the concealment to get shots into the side and rear of my enemies, and I'm going to track them where possible. And you can see that we've had a very influential part in this battle, dealing damage where we could, and we're just going to try and get the last remaining couple of shells in on this M48 here as we try and get round his side. But he gets taken out by our friendly FE4005, and that's it for that game. In a very quick game, we've managed to pick up 6.3k damage with 1 kill, 388 assistance. That's only a second class, showing you just how well people play this tank. We finish in the MVP position, just ahead of Crow. And big shout out to Jack as well, who helped in that battle with his Object 268. We make just shy of 300,000 silver, and an all-round decent game to start off the replay. So that's it for the first replay. We're going to jump on into the second one. Righty ho then, we're now into the second replay of today's video, and we're here on Thiepval Ridge, which is a little bit of a better map than the last one because it's slightly larger, has more foliage and lots more room for me to maneuver, use the mobility and the concealment factor of this tank, and stay hidden just that little bit more. So we're going to head to a central location. It's an encounter battle, so the capture flag is in E5, and we're just going to try and spot out towards the north at the start of this battle. I have some hard cover in this little ruin here and some rocks to my left, but I also have lots of foliage, so I should be able to stay hidden. Just bear in mind that obviously people will be able to see you if you're sort of skylighting yourself on top of a ridgeline because of the true vision system. However, using the spotting mechanics, in this kind of position, I'm going to be golden unless people come within that kind of vicinity of the capture circle. And you see all these targets here, and I'm just going to try and get my gun singing at the start of this battle. Whenever I'm firing, I'm trying to just rock backwards behind the hard cover in case anyone has seen my shell tracer, so I'm just trying to avoid people detecting me that way. And I'm going to alternate between going to the left and right of this ruin just to try and keep it fresh in case anyone is trying to looking for my shell tracer, trying to see where I am. And look at who is actually shooting at them. And this is why you don't hang around on those ridge lines in the north of this map for too long, because quick tanks like the NM-116 will get to this position and they'll farm you up, and we're already up to just shy of 1300 damage. We've got 318 assistance, and there's already a kill for our team in this battle, and we're just chunking the opponents down at the start of this battle. And yeah, this is the kind of gameplay that you're going to be wanting to do. You can play that light tank sort of scouting role should you need to, but it does really excel in this sneaky tank destroyer role. You can try and sit too far back sometimes because of that fantastic concealment. You just want to stay hidden at all times, but you do have to remember you do have a fairly substantial number of hit points at 1900 hit points. Just make sure you don't get hit by anything like an FE4005, but you can take a few shells later in the battle should you need to, or even sort of early doors or midway through the battle if you want to take out a dangerous tank on the enemy team or something like that. You have to use your hit points in a tank like this as well as using your concealment. But the impact that we're having, as you can see, is helping our team into an early lead, and we're just going to try and keep our guns singing. Because of the great DPM, you're going to want to try and fire as close to reload as possible, and of course that kind of goes for almost every tank, but that's one of the main features of this tank. Because of the lower caliber gun, you're going to have to put in the work and put in the shots if you want to make the silver and get those damage numbers up. You will make good silver doing sort of 1.5 to 2k damage if you're not firing any of those heat rounds, but you can have some pretty phenomenal games and make a lot of silver, as you saw in the last game in this tank. And I'm seeing a lot of these on the battlefield, especially since it was buffed, and it's a very popular tank, which usually means the tank's good, and in this case that's definitely the case. Why? So the buffs back in February, they really did help this tank out. It was already very good before, but the buffs to things like the reverse speed, so when you're on a ridgeline you can pull back quicker, saving you a shot of damage, the concealment on the move, and also just the all-round steel concealment really helped this tank out. It made it even sneakier, and it allows you to play a more sort of scout light tank destroyer role like I've been going on about. A little bit extra to the view range does help with the spotting mechanics, so you can help get that assistance in. The accuracy at 0.33 was good, but when it jumped to 0.31 with the commander and equipment setup that I've chosen to use with some gun handling skills, you do really have a very accurate gun. And to have 0.5 seconds shaved off of your reload was very nice, and it allowed me to have that very nice DPM that we now have in the NM-116. So we've gone from the centre in this battle. We're heading towards the north now, trying to spot out tanks that are hiding here in the north, and also get flanking shots to tanks that are in the centre. I'm comfortable in my concealment rating here. I know there's an FE 4005 straight ahead of me there, and if I get spotted I know he's probably going to come for me, but I feel confident in my concealment, but also my mobility to escape should I need to, and I also have the smoke consumable to use if necessary. And if something like an FE 4005 comes for me, I'm going to try and track it, get around it, because it hasn't got a fully traversable turret. And you'll see here that we're firing at kind of mid-distance and not getting spotted by tanks that have relatively good view range. That FE 4005 finally gets into a position to spot us as he fires over that ridge, but he takes his last shot and he kills our M47, but our friendly FE 4005 kills him. Now I'm much more confident. I'm going to head forward a little bit more. The enemies know where I'm coming from, but I'm just going to take it steady around these corners, and I've got a full whack of hit points, and this was what I was on about in the last battle. You do want to use your hit points sometimes in tanks like this, because although you don't have any armour, and although you are a tank destroyer and you're sort of meant to be a kind of sniping gun, later in the battle, if you want to get those high damage numbers, make some more silver, you can't take your hit points with you. You might as well get stuck in, get the gun singing, and although this is very good gun handling, you are going to be more efficient when you get up close on mid to sort of short ranges. So it's now 5 against 3, so it's still relatively close, although I do feel really confident in our chances. We managed to track that T-44A there, get a shot into him, and he gets taken out by the M48. And now we're just going to advance on this FE 4005. I'm going to try and keep hard cover and foliage in front of me. Unfortunately, the SFE 107 spots us, but we're going to try and get a shell to finish him off. We managed to hit him, but bounced off the top of his turret. Must have hit a weird auto ricochet angle. The FE 4005, I'm guessing, is probably looking at where I'm coming from, so I popped some smoke there to try and deceive him in case he was tracking my movement. I do get spotted, he's behind that pillar, and now we're able to juke him. So he fires at us just as we're moving left behind that hard cover, and now little wiggle, I know that this game's done, just need to finish him off and then try and finish this FE 107 off. We free aim that one, lead in front of him because auto aim would have missed there, and we get another kill and take that game down with 3 kills, finishing in the MVP slot again. 4.2k direct damage, another second class, 2.9k assistance, 1414 XP, and yeah, just shy of 300,000 silver again, we're just shy of 250,000 silver, so we're making hefty profits in every game that we're playing. So we're going to jump on in now to the last replay, and I'll talk you through that one. So then we're now into the third and final replay of today's video, and we're here on Erlenberg in the NM-116. This map can be a real pain in the ass when you are in World War II because of the artillery, and also because of the ground that you have to cover, and it could be even worse sometimes in Cold War because of the true vision system. People will spot you from a mile off. There is foliage in certain areas, but usually it's a camp off between the sort of 2-3 line and the 8-9 line. I'm going to make a pressure play early doors, get into a position in the sort of A sort of 0, B0 position here. I'm going to try and spot down the 0 line, and this is a very sneaky position to be in. As you can see here, the concealment factor is really good. I'm almost certain if I fire I'm going to get spotted, but I will just test it out, try and fire when there is foliage in front of me. And as you can see here, that object 165 didn't spot me from however close we are here, sort of 250, 240 meters, which is absolutely insane, just showing you the concealment factor you can get in the NM-116 and showing you just the kind of thing that you can do in this tank. This is a very aggressive position. I'm kind of playing like that light tank destroyer role. I'm going to have to change up every single time that I'm using the ridgeline here, because people will be pre-aimed for me. They know I'm here, and there's a very good likelihood that I will be chased down. They're just going to YOLO me at some point. Sometimes the position works and sometimes it doesn't. I like to just play that risky kind of aggressive style. You might want to sit a little bit further back where the medium and heavy are sitting in sort of B5, B6 towards that sort of bridge area, or you might even want to just sit on the 1 and 2 line and snipe across. But because I've got everyone spotted below this ridge line, they're not going to have many shots, so I'm going to be calling for help throughout this battle using the command wheel. But for the meantime, I'm just going to get shots in where I can and try and help my team out as much as possible, getting the vision out. And you can see here that I wasn't spotted there, sort of 220, 230 meters until I fired there, which is absolutely insane. The 10 degrees of gun depression's working wonders for me here. We left it too long on that ridgeline and you can see what happens. Fortunately, it was only a T95E3 that shot us, so we only lost a few hundred hit points. It could have been a lot worse if it was that FE 4005. We're going to take a bit of a risk here popping up and getting a shot into him, but we were only detected. We weren't getting aimed at there. Our sixth sense is the only thing that went off, so I was just taking a gamble that nothing was going to be firing at me like that FE 4005. I'm playing with fire here, but I'm just trying to get some pretty cool games to show you all, and this managed to be one of them. Spoiler alert. I guess it's not really a spoiler because it wouldn't be really included if it was the final replay in this video, but yeah, we're using this position to great effect. If you want to use this position, whether it be in World War II or whether it's going to be in a Cold War, bear in mind that sometimes you will get YOLO'd. I'd say like 60% of the time you will get YOLO'd in this position, especially when they're getting frustrated and they're constantly getting lit up. More so maybe in World War II because of the artillery that's in World War II, but in Cold War, this position's only really going to be used like this in a tank destroyer in Era 1 or a light tank that has a lower profile, good gun depression, good concealment. And yeah, you can see here that we're just going to make use of true vision there ourselves, and we're just watching, always scanning the horizon of the tanks that might be sitting in the distance. There might be an FE 4005, Object 268, something with a big caliber gun, even things like a T100 with that 440 alpha damage, or the SU 12254 that we compared this tank to. They might be looking at you from the distance, so always bear that in mind. Always scan the horizon, and we're just going to try and support our heavy tank and medium tank that have come underneath our gun line here, come to support us. So we're going to continue to get the shots in. You can see that you don't have to sit too long on these ridge lines. You aim in really quickly. The DPM's fantastic. I highly recommend this tank. It's one that I'll probably go for marked on eventually if I can find the patience that seems to have deserted me after playing this game for so long, but maybe that will come back in the future. You'll see that we go straight through there, the turret of the M47, so the penetration on the standard APF SDS rounds is more than enough. And we're just going to town on these tanks. We're already up to 4k damage in the first sort of 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes of this battle. Get a lovely shot there on the move. That wouldn't probably have happened if it didn't have the buff back in February. That buffed the dispersion. And now we're going to head forward from that position. It's kind of run its course. We're going to use dead wrecks and foliage and hard cover to advance. And then we're going to try and get our shots in where we can. There's an FE 4005 there that does get a shell into us. Fortunately, he was firing AP, or he just splashed with Hesh. I can't quite tell. I wasn't quite paying attention to the hit points. but that was where it could have gone downhill, and there is an element of luck to playing this aggressively, but there's also a sort of element of fun in it as well, and when it pays off big in terms of your damage number and in turn your silver output. So we're now winning this game quite substantially. Because we were putting in so much work there in that position, our teammates finally joined us. We flanked from the south, and now we've got them in that pincer maneuver. We're now just going to try and rack up even more damage. We've got side and rear shots into these tanks. We're going to try and use the high ground so we don't have to get too close to them, and then we can use our ability to get up closer, and if we do need to, we'll take a shot, just not from the FE 4005, because that will be our downfall. But as you can see here, we're getting shots here every 5 seconds into the T95E3, and then we're going to move on and see if we can get a final shout into the FE 4005. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video looking at the NM-116. It's a tank that I highly recommend. For if for some reason you haven't got this one yet, I highly recommend getting this tank. It's very powerful, and yeah, if you have games like this and you're interested in WN8, this will definitely rack up your WN8, and yeah, that's why I play in it, to make myself look better than I am. But that's it for that game. We finish with a profit of just shy of 300,000, first class, no mastery in today's video, 1590 base experience points, MVP, with 4 kills, 6,387 damage, and 625 assistance in a very aggressive light tank destroyer hybrid role. So thank you all so much for watching. We're getting very close to that 1,000 subscriber mark, and I can't thank you all enough. But until next time, I will see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.